Why? Why is it so difficult? Just because you don't like it. Yes, it does. It has everything to do with it. It has everything for you to sit here and cry. Look at me when I talk to you.
They say that people raised in a bad environment can go on to change for the better, choosing not to follow the pattern of their past. And while this is true, and it has been proven time and time again, I think that it's a common misconception that people simply leave the past behind. Because the truth is that no matter how far you run from your past, it's still a part of you. And while your outward intentions may seem good, the trauma that you've endured allows that bad side to lay dormant. And while it lays in wait, it grows. It's a ticking time bomb waiting to explode. For some people, the fuse is never lit. They go on and they live their life normal. But for others, life seems to provide the tools necessary to light that fuse. And just like that, the bomb goes off, and life seems to repeat itself. You're officially a product of your environment. But what happens when your environment is full of neglect and pain? It's simple. You get the outcome of this next case. This is the story of Au'Promis Lathrop. August 23rd, 2015. The world would make way for Au'Promis Lathrop. She would be born to her father, Carlton Glenmore, and her mother, Marianne Glenmore. The place they called home was Janesville, Wisconsin. Both Carlton and Marianne had children outside of their relationship, so in return, they would form a blended family. The result of this union would bring Au'Promis into this world.
What you doing, huh? Hi, pretty girl. Oh, yeah. Are you going to talk to me?
Online videos depict a happy family for the children.
Okay, so Au'Promis is getting lemon.
Does she?
Yeah. Oh. Who is that?
What is that, baby?
She does.
Wow.
Your baby's a weirdo.
But beyond the videos, it was a different story. At the time, the parents were doing what they saw as the best thing they could do possible to take care of their children. But it was the way that they made their living that brought in confusion. While videos online showed loving parents, there were underlying issues. Behind the scenes was a mother who was addicted to substances and a father who sold them. Needless to say, this will lead to a future that was tumultuous. They say that life always catches up with you, and for the parents, this would be the case. In due time, the father would be arrested. He would be charged with intent to sell, as well as manufacturing. And not long after, Marianne would be arrested for possession. At this point, the home is broken. Neither one of the parents are present. And in light of this, the children would be turned over to the state. Whenever children become state property, you're usually given a chance to prove yourself, to earn your children back. And Marianne and Carlton were given that choice. In the beginning of that process, things seemed to be going okay. Carlton Glenmore had paid his debt to society. He did his time and he was released. And the mother, well, she seemed on the right path too. With this being the case, they would both be rewarded with child visitation. And they were showing up to every visit. They would both visit their daughter, Au'Promis, as well as visiting another son. A son who goes by the name of Davion. A son who was removed from their care before Au'Promis. Pictures would once again show a happy family. Children who were elated to be in the presence of their parents. The plan for Carlton and Marianne was to get their children back. They were going to walk a straight path and win them back from the state. Both Carlton and Marianne got jobs, worked a normal 9 to 5, but due to their past, they couldn't seem to find a job that paid a livable wage. And in the process, they would revert back to their old ways. The demons of the past had a hold that was unshakable. Unable to sustain himself financially, the father would revert back to the streets, and Marianne would buckle under the pressure. She would go back to using. The strain of a broken family unit would spill over into the relationship. They too would succumb to the world's tactics, and they would separate. And then would come the final blow. They would fail to meet the requirements to get their children back, and they would officially be placed on the adoption list. With Au'Promis' bubbly personality and Davion's charming ways, they wouldn't stay on that list long. They would be adopted by a couple who goes by the name of Daniel and Melinda. They would adopt both Au'Promis and her brother Davion. This was it. They had a family, a new one. They would even take on their last name, Lathrop. Meanwhile, Carlton and Marianne are all out of hope. Any chance they had to regain their children was now gone, and they would drift further away. As for Carlton Glenmore, he would remain in Janesville, Wisconsin, but things never changed. It was deja vu. He was in and out of jail for the same charges, possession with intent. As far as Marianne, she moved on. She met a new guy and moved to Chicago, Illinois. Like Carlton, her life was also deja vu. She would be in and out of jail for petty charges, whether it was theft or possession. I guess at this point, they had given up. Years would pass, and the year's now 2024. Au'Promis Lathrop is now 8 years old. They have now been in their adoptive parents' home for years, and they've grown fond of them. They were children who were raised in the church. They were also active in their community. Au'Promis Lathrop attended Yahara Elementary School in Edgerton, where she loved math, drawing, and being with her friends. She's described as sweet, funny, but also sassy, and that's just the beginning. Aside from hanging out with family and friends, she was athletic. She enjoyed doing gymnastics and was also a member of the Edgerton Otter swim team. She was someone with a loving and caring soul. She was a child that lived up to her name, Promise. She had dreams and a promising future, but as they say, life never goes as planned. Unbeknownst to the family, a storm was brewing on the horizon, and when the lightning finally strikes, it comes without warning. March 9th, 2024. The officers of Madison County would be dispatched to the 5500 block of West Miles Road, located in Fulton. At the time, they are responding to a call about a missing child. The missing child in question was Au'Promis. They would arrive to the home and immediately begin searching the immediate area. After a brief search, they would realize that she's not in that area, so they would expand their search, a larger search into the neighborhoods. They would even employ K9 units and a drone team. On the ground was more than 20 deputies that were searching, but they would get nowhere. At the time, the 911 call was made by Au'Promis' adoptive father, Daniel, and when the police showed up, he would be questioned. He would go on to tell the officers about his day. He said that he got up and he prepared himself to go to the store, but while he went to the store, he left Au'Promis in the care of her older brother, Davion. So the father goes out, he does his shopping, and then he returns home. But when he gets home, things seem off. He would return to the home around 5:45 p.m. and when he got home, it was eerily quiet, except for hearing water running. So he goes to the downstairs bathroom, where he finds Davion standing there, unclothed. Inside of the tub, he notices a bucket that seems to be filling with water. But if that wasn't odd enough, he looked over and he notices that the light to the laundry room is on, and on the floor is soap. At the time, he wasn't thinking too much of it. He figured that Davion was just taking a bath, so he asked Davion, "Where's Au'Promis?" But Davion doesn't answer. He then repeats the question, "Where's your sister?" But Davion answers this time. He simply says, "Au'Promis is dead." Like any other parent's reaction, the father becomes discombobulated, and he presses him. "What do you mean she's gone? What happened?" But when he asks Davion what happened, he doesn't answer. With the adoptive father's testimony, Davion is immediately taken into custody. At least, he's being held at that time. When they initially questioned him, he had the same reaction he had with his adoptive father. He doesn't say anything. In this case, they have to follow proper protocol, so they draw up a warrant to search the home. And when that warrant finally lands, they go in. But just like the adoptive father, after searching the home, they find nothing. But although they found nothing, it's not enough to quit the search, because at this point, the house seems like a crime scene that was attempted to be cleaned up. So, the seasoned detectives go out to the truck and they grab an item. It's luminol, and they begin to spray the home. They would head down to the downstairs bathroom where that bucket was in the tub, and they would spray that area. And when they do, it immediately lights up, which means that area is now tested positive for blood. The officers would then turn their sights to the laundry room where the light was on and the soap was on the floor. In this laundry room, they find a tote. When the family was questioned about this tote, they said, obviously, it was out of place. So one of the officers attempts to pick up this tote, but they realize that it's heavy. So instead of picking it up, they open it. And when they do, they find a bottle of bleach, but also hydrogen peroxide. These items were located sitting on top of towels, and protruding from those towels was human hair in shape of a braid. So the towel is lifted, and when it does, everything is revealed. Underneath the towel, they find Au'Promis. She had been placed inside of the tote in attempts to hide her. The dire search for her is now over, and a new question arises. What happened? And the only person that can answer that question is Davion. So he's hauled down to headquarters for further questioning. Now that all is revealed, Davion decides to tell what happened. He says that when their father left for the store, it was a normal day. He was sitting back at the house, smoking and drinking. At some point in that day, him and Au'Promis get in an argument. Police records show that the neighbors witnessed them arguing outside of the home. A short time after this argument, Davion Lathrop and his sister, Au'Promis, go back into the home. And hours later, the neighborhood is surrounded with police cars. During the interrogation, Davion would admit that he knew that Au'Promis was no longer here, but he never admitted to any wrongdoing. In this case, Davion would be held pending autopsy results and pending further charges. The results would show that the main culprit at play in this incident was a tactical knife. Au'Promis Lathrop suffered several wounds. They were found on her body, on her arms, as well as the neck area. When the autopsy concluded, it would be ruled a homicide. Davion Lathrop would be charged with murder and awaiting his trial.
We're learning more tonight about the death of an 8-year-old girl who was found in a Rock County home last week. 20-year-old Davion Lathrop was arrested on Tuesday and has now been formally charged. The criminal complaint states that Lathrop is facing 2 felony charges.
His trial would begin in May of 2024, but when he showed up for his arraignment, he would have a competency hearing. Turns out, the state doesn't think that Davion has it all right up there. They think something's off. So he would be sent to a mental health hospital pending evaluation.
In the courtroom today, we learned the doctor in charge of his competency evaluation couldn't come to a decision.
Rachel Perry has you covered on what that means going forward.
Essentially what this means is the doctor isn't sure if Davion Lathrop understands the proceedings and is able to assist in his own defense, but that doesn't mean the case is closed. Here's why. A competency evaluation exists because under state law, quote, no person who lacks substantial mental capacity to understand the proceedings or assist in his or her own defense may be tried, convicted, or sentenced. But the court can order further evaluations to see if the person has regained competency. In Lathrop's case, this evaluation is just the first.
And just like that, the wheels that were being set in motion for justice for Au'Promis Lathrop was now being postponed, and his next court date was set for the next year. Court would proceed on July 15th of 2025, but when he shows up, guess what? The evaluation was completed, and they say he's not competent and he can't stand trial. So he's once again hauled off to the Department of Health. In December of 2025, he was finally deemed competent to stand trial, and his trial date is set for May of 2026. Due to this being an ongoing case, not much has been released. No motive, no real reason behind why Davion did what he did. But when I look at this case, I see a past that has come back to haunt. We have parents that chose a different path in life, a bad one that led to them being removed from the home. This is what creates a disconnection. And if a person has never experienced real love, undeniable love, they tend to go on to be heartless. We have 2 kids who were essentially released by their parents' actions. They were placed in adoptive care, but at that young age, it's something that you don't understand. And to children, this seems like abandonment. And if a parent doesn't love their children, at least in their eyes, how can they go on to love themselves? And if you don't care for yourself, how can you care for others? They say that people raised in a bad environment can go on to change for the better, choosing not to follow the pattern of their past. And while this is true, and it has been proven time and time again, I think that it's a common misconception that people simply leave the past behind. Because the truth is that no matter how far you run from your past, it's still a part of you. And while your outward intentions may seem good, the trauma that you've endured allows that bad side to lay dormant. And while it lays in wait, it grows. It's a ticking time bomb waiting to explode. And while it lays in wait, it grows. It's a ticking time bomb waiting to explode. For some people, the fuse is never lit. They go on and they live their life normal. But for others, life seems to provide the tools necessary to light that fuse. And just like that, the bomb goes off and life seems to repeat itself. You're officially a product of your environment. What Davion did to Au'Promis Lathrop is completely tragic. It's heartbreaking on so many levels. Something, somewhere in his life, lit that fuse to that ticking time bomb. But I guess we'll have to wait until the court proceedings to find out the truth. What really happened on that day, as far as their biological parents. You would think that this would change things, that this would put them on the straight path. Well, guess what? You're wrong. The father is still in and out of jail for the same charges. And her mother is still in Chicago, roaming the dark, cold streets, still feeding her habit. They're both in and out of jail. In fact, the father is currently incarcerated, which leads to the next question. What if they would have walked the straight path? What if they had done everything right and gained their children back? Would the outcome have been different? Needless to say, it probably would have. And make no mistake about it, my heart goes out to them as well. I'm sure their pain is unbearable. I'm not here blaming them for what happened, but we tell the truth. And the truth is that they provided the tools necessary for that fuse to be lit. Tools that allowed their son to become so disconnected from family that he did the unthinkable. And to add salt to the wound, he was mentally incapacitated. He didn't even understand what he did, at least by the court's eyes. I'm truly sorry this happened. Rest in peace, Au'Promis Lathrop. Thank you for being a light for others. I truly hope you receive the justice that you deserve.